Ah, for the old days of museum work. I couldn't resist putting this up. It was not the photograph that I was looking for, but when I ran across it in archives yesterday, I said, no, we got to put this on here. Only because this is a photograph from the 1940s, and it's a professional model, and she is actually wearing material. Where's Ray? This is going to be, you haven't seen this one, have you? Okay. There's a Sidio Conte thread running through the conference, evidently, starting yesterday with Kate Moore and the dog teeth, and then Ray's paper this afternoon. So these are actually pieces of some of the gold from Sidio Conte, and kind of finished up with a little Amazonian feathered headdress, completely filled with arsenic, but that's probably why her skin looks so beautiful. Anyway, no, actually, that's another South American piece, and I'm not sure exactly what it is. It's like a cane tube, but this has a long string of those the beetle wings, the iridescent green ones. Anyway. For the days when curators could dress. Maybe this perhaps is why conservation was developed. I don't know. It's another theory. So I actually have two stories that I'm going to tell about conservation. And first of all, again, welcome to the Penn Museum. And I think I'll say all of my colleagues here. We actually work in one of the greatest museums in the world. And I'm not just saying that because our director is sitting back there. So I have two stories that I'm going to share. One of them involves Sidio Conte. And then I have a very personal story, a conservation story that I'll share at the end. So the material from Sidio Conte, and Ray will go into this later, I'm guessing, but Harvard Peabody dug the site first in the early 1930s. We picked it up in 1940, and under J. Alden Mason. And the material that came back, and this is a shot in the storeroom in the basement of one aisle of 12 banks of shelves with bags and bags and bags of shirts. And when the material came back, and the gold, interestingly, is just a minor part of that, of the amount of material that came back. So when the material came back, but the majority of it was actually broken ceramics, and they tried their best to keep what they thought were similar pots together. And this is a shot of, this is Vladimir Fuchs here, and he was Lynn referenced him yesterday as, this was the kind of the earliest ceramics lab that happened here. Here they're not working on Sidio Conte ceramics, but that's exactly what they look like. And so WPA workers in the 1940s were hired, and Vladimir Fuchs ran that program, and they, across the board, worked on putting ceramics back together. What we have here, actually, and you can see where it's starting to fall apart, and this is the backside, not of the same vessel, obviously, but state-of-the-art, mid-1940s conservation treatment. Excuse me. A lot of that material was put together by these WPA workers, which over time the adhesives began to give way. And there was a young woman who was here who was from Albania, I think, an intern, and Lynn had asked me, to pull up something for her to work on, and brought up one of these plates, which she then took apart, cleaned, and put back together. So she walks out the door, and we have a pre-programmed person, Keisha Talbert, who was working in the lab, and Lynn said, could you find another kind of similar thing for Keisha to work on? And so I took Keisha to the basement, and we're just flashlight, and we're going down that long aisle, and just looking at bags. And so this is what a close-up of one of the bags looked like. There's a vessel in there somewhere. Actually, I think right here is a pedestal, the base of the pedestal. And as we were looking at one of these bags, I said, "Oh my God, I think that's a leg." This one right there. So we pulled this bag out, and sure enough, it was a leg, and buried inside of it was another leg. So this is the assemblage as it wound up sitting in conservation. And out of that, Keisha created the pot, which actually kind of, I think it blew all of us away, frankly, and it just made us wonder what other kind of amazing pots aren't sitting down in bags, and so we need to drive a lot of people crazy. So I guess maybe the tie-in here is the power of objects. So objects attract. You want to wear them, right? In this case, objects repel, because when Keisha went to the Buffalo program, she became paper conservator. She ran screaming from objects. But she did, and we christened him the Fat Shaman. And I think, and you're pulling up at El Caño, you're pulling up similar vessels. So, and he became the poster child for a lot of things, I think. And actually, he became the star in the recent redo of an exhibit that we had done back in the, was it 90s, 80s? River of Gold? I just don't remember anymore, but River of Gold, yeah, which focused on the gold, which, as I said, is a very small portion of the actual excavated material. And so the redo of the exhibit, which was called Beneath the Surface, we tried to include many more ceramics, and we could only tax conservation so much. But he was ready to go, so he became the star of the show. And as a matter of fact, when the show was at the Gardner Museum in Toronto, they took it. He was on one of the great posters on the street, kind of blown up about this big, but monumental guy anyway. And my other conservation story is, and I think you'll remember these or this. I have a 13-year-old daughter, and before she was born, the staff here was going to throw a shower for me, and so one day, and this was back when the old labs were downstairs. I walk into the labs, and because you couldn't swipe in then, you could just walk in the door, and I walk in, and it's Ginny and Lynn and Julie and Tom Fuller, all sitting there doing stuff, and all of a sudden there's this flurry of activity and things are getting covered up and whatever. They actually were creating, my specialty is North American material and primarily plains, and what they did was they created this beautiful doll, female doll, dressed in buckskin with beadwork, and it was just really quite delightful. And my daughter still has it, but just another example of how collections and conservation work hand in hand. And this conservation department is really, really amazing. Everyone who's come through here has been a delight to work with, and I think all my collections colleagues will say the same thing. So congratulations to the Penn Museum Conservation Department. Thanks.